Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's install, it's time for a new intake for my 4th gen Tacoma. So we will be installing the 6th Element intake for this truck. I'll have a link down in the description below where you can purchase this product. We have a lot of benefits with this intake system over the factory intake. So this is going to provide about 12 to 17% of an airflow increase. It's going to add 14 horsepower and 14 pound-feet of torque. No tuning is required with this intake, and this intake also has a very close and similar factory design. So you'll notice once I show the factory one, if you're looking for a factory intake, this is the closest that I've seen so far, and this has a really neat surprise. So this is a quick snap magnetic lid. So there's a magnet on all 4 corners, and for shipping purposes, this is covered. It's actually clear, so you'll be able to see the air filter. This eliminates having screws in all 4 corners there, so you don't worry about losing those or dropping them into the engine bay, and it makes it much easier to gain access to the air filter and clean it as well. So that is a really unique feature to see for this. Of course, we have some of the couplers and the intake pipe there itself to attach to the inside of the truck. So here's the factory one. As you can tell, it has a very similar shape. So to start off with the uninstallation of the factory intake, I'm going to start up front where there's 4 of these push pins. So you just have to push down on those, of course. I would recommend pulling the front 2 out. The back 2 are in this metal piece here. So once you slowly lift this up, you can gain access to those, and then just keep these 2 in here so that way you don't lose them. From there, let's move on to the mass airflow sensor because we will be transferring this to the new intake. So there is a push pin on the edge of it. So you just have to grab it, and it's going to take a little bit of wiggling if you can't get it at first. It's kind of hard to get some pressure on the very end of it, but once you do that, you can remove that. And I'm going to go ahead and actually remove the sensor itself. You just need a Phillips head in order to do this, and just be mindful when you are pulling them out because like anything else, you don't want to drop them into the engine bay there. And then we can set this to the side. From there, it's time to loosen up both of these bolts holding this curved pipe on the top to the intake box itself and to the engine there. So this is a 10 millimeter, and you just want to loosen them up enough, of course, where you can start to wiggle this pipe. I've already loosened this lower one down below. So from here, I can start to wiggle this back. And a good tip to use, if this is your first time doing this, you can actually stick a flathead in this pipe just to help break that seal because it will be on fairly snug. I have already done this, so it is going to be a little bit looser and easier for me. Even then, it's still a little bit sticky, but once you remove that, you can also twist it and better help slide this lower one out. So you just might have to maneuver it a little bit harder than I did, maybe get a flathead down below to help break that seal, and it's just a matter of wiggling and popping it right out. So now before we can actually remove this intake box itself, surprisingly, this isn't even bolted down. There's some rubber bushings on the bottom of it, which I will show you because we will be transferring some of those over. So all you really have to do is give this a good pull up towards the hood, and that is free. Now from here, we have the rest of the connection for that mass airflow sensor located on this piece right here. And the best way that I found to do this is I'm just going to try to twist this box as best I can upside down without pulling this out, of course, because now I can gain access to it. There's 2 portions underneath that are holding it in from actually being removed. So all you need to do is kind of pinch them with a set of pliers, and that will help you pop it right out. So from there, now we can completely remove this box. So with everything removed, this is the underside of the factory box where there's these rubber bushings that you can just peel right out of the underside. It might take a little bit of pressure to kind of get them through and out. But these are what held this box to the truck. So there's a little pin in the bottom of the truck that these correspond to, and the pin just gets pushed right into the bottom. So from here, we're transferring all 3 to the new intake box. So it doesn't matter where you put them, of course, but you do want to make sure that you install them from the bottom because they are designed, of course, to only go in one way. So you want that same portion that goes into that pin in the truck to be on the bottom itself. And now it's time for the reinstallation of this box. So you are just going to line up those rubber portions that we just installed with their corresponding hole and just give it a good firm push. It's nice that we do have some access to get a hand down there, so that way I can try to line them up by hand as well. And may just have to wiggle it around slightly since you're kind of going in blind here. As we move on to the coupler install now, you'll notice one diameter is significantly larger than the other. So this one here with the larger diameter is going to correspond to the airbox cover here. Now for the hardware, I'm using a 5/16. For the socket, you could use a flathead as well if you liked. Now, in order to put this on, basically just kind of wiggle it. If you have these clamps loose enough, it will go on just like that. And then with the other one, the larger diameter is actually going to go on the intake pipe itself. So the smaller diameter is going to go on the vehicle. So we will place it down with the smaller diameter facing down. Now what you also want to do is I'm actually going to flip both of these rings around to make it much easier to tighten them for the install. So now they're facing outwards when I install this onto the truck here. It's going to take a little bit of wiggling, just like we did up top. And once I get that all the way down and in place, now I have better access for both of these right here. So they're facing outwards. I have room to get this down and snug them up when that's ready. And then to move on to this pipe itself, the mass airflow sensor is going to be a great indication as to which way this is going to go on. You'll notice we have a large curved section of this and then a very short piece where the mass airflow sensor is. The shorter piece is going to go closer to the airbox cover itself. So from here, I can wiggle it into one, and then as I turn it, since we still have the intake box loose, this is going to help me in the installation of pushing both of these on. So now that we have both of them on, it's time to snug up those 4 bands. And again, just make sure that you have this pipe all the way into both of the couplers. So I held the intake box, gave it a good pull towards me, and also gave it a good push downwards. So you want to make sure that there's a solid connection between both of those. Now from there, we can move on to the mass airflow sensor, where you will need an Allen key in order to remove these. And it looks like we do have a locking washer on them, so just be careful with the removal of both of these. But once I have the second one loose, we can bring up the entire plate here. And then from there, we'll slide the mass airflow sensor through the slot of this bracket, and it's going to line up just like that. And then we can put it in and reinstall both of these bolts. And with these nice and snug, I think I forgot to mention, you want to make sure that these clamps are nice and snug too. There's no torque specs or anything. You just want to make sure it is hand tight and you are good to go. And then we do need to reconnect the mass airflow sensor connection. What I'm actually going to do is loop it underneath the intake pipe itself. And we actually have enough here to bring it up and connect it into place. So that way it's basically hugging this pipe here, and we don't have any excess or anything floating around to get into any other parts. And then last up, for the front section of this, which also has 6th right in it where you can see it, which is a nice touch, we have 2 of the factory push pins that we can use and lock this down into position. So we have one on both sides. You will not be reutilizing the 2 up front, so you can just hang on to those ones as needed. And then the final part is with this lid here. As I mentioned earlier, it is going to be see-through, so now I just need to work on removing this cover here. It looks like we do have a few different pieces, so it might just take a little bit of time. And there we go. The last piece of the puzzle is complete. So with the 6 element intake installed into the truck, as you can tell, it has that factory look to it, although we have a lot more cutouts, especially into the air filter itself, and then this see-through lid, which I think is just a really cool design. Very easy access in order to clean that, and it just gives it a very cool look. Now let's go ahead and get some sound clips with the factory intake along with this intake, and then see my thoughts on how this new intake sounds. right, so now that we have done the sound comparison between the stock intake and this 6th element intake, you can definitely hear it, as hopefully you've been able to tell. You really hear it when you let off the accelerator, and then when you're really accelerating pretty quickly. It's hard to hear over my exhaust, but it's still there and it's nice to hear. Now, just under a normal coasting kind of cruising speed here, you won't really hear it, which is nice. So just depending on the driving that you're doing, of course, will depend on if you hear it. So just cruising like this, it's not obnoxious, it's not crazy loud, anything like that. It has a good tone to it, especially when you let off the accelerator. So let's slow down just a little bit so we can hear it again. It's a little bit hard for the mic inside to pick up the noise, but it's going right now. And then when you let off, you can just hear that whoosh sound. Now, unlike the Trail Hunter Tacoma, which has a snorkel on the side, when you roll down the passenger window in that model, you can actually hear that noise amplified at the top of the window there. So it is neat that we can kind of mimic that noise without having to put on a snorkel. That would require a lot of work and drilling that I am not willing to do. And so by installing this intake, we can get a similar sound, which is definitely neat to hear for this turbo engine. But that is going to wrap it up for the installation and the sound clips for this 6th element intake. Take a look at the link down in the description so you can take a look at this product for your vehicle. And if you enjoyed today's video, give it a huge thumbs up and consider smashing that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our daily uploads and the rest of the build for this 4th gen Tacoma. And I will see you all in the next video.